This good-for-nothing salaryman gets isekai'd as the weakest F-ranked hero, but with his legendary cooking skills and a cheat skill that lets him use Amazon, he ends up making an SS-rank magical beast his pet. The story begins in a forest where a venom tarantula is trying to ambush a rabbit. However, just as it takes the leap, the godly wolf beast Fel taps lightly on the ground with his feet, sending extreme thunder waves through the venom tarantula's body, along with other venom tarantulas hiding in the nearby trees. The job is done, and the only reason Fel bothered killing such weaklings is because he came up with this weird idea to make Mukoda a meal using spider meat. Mukoda isn't so sure about this, but Fel assures him that if he removes the shells of these spiders, they will be edible. Sui comes out of Mukoda's bag, expressing her desire to take part in a fight, as it's been quite a long time since she's gotten to battle against monsters. Mukoda, in reply, promises that he'll give her a chance to fight next time. Seeing Mukoda act so nicely with Sui makes Fel feel jealous because Mukoda never seems to listen to his words properly, but that's not true at all because from day one, Mukoda has been doing what Fel has asked him to do every single time. Speaking of meals, Fel immediately orders his useless chef to prepare him a meal for lunch, mentioning how exhausted he is from running all day long carrying Mukoda and Sui on his back. Mukoda knows this is just a silly excuse, but he's already used to it, so he simply does what Fel wants him to do. Before getting to cooking, he stuffs the spider corpses in his other dimensional inventory using storage magic. Once that's done, he brings out 3 types of meat. On the left is a ribeye, in the middle is a sirloin cut, and to the right is a bunch of ground orc general meat. Suddenly, Mukoda comes across a problem. He doesn't have proper ingredients to cook a diverse meal, but then he comes up with a workaround idea to cook this special dish called gyoza. To prepare for this recipe, he opens the online grocery store to buy some gyoza wraps and seasonings. While he's scrolling through the shopping list, Fel's eyes lock on Wagyu beef. However, Mukoda refuses to buy the Wagyu beef since he doesn't need it for the gyoza recipe. He ignores Fel's pleas and gets the ingredients he needs. The seasonings consist of only 2 items, chicken stock and sesame oil. There are many other supplementary items needed for the cooking, but Mukoda already has them, so he doesn't need to buy them separately from the online grocery store. He gets started by finely chopping a cabbage and a bunch of chives. Then he adds ginger and garlic paste to the ground meat. He doesn't stop there and adds some soy sauce, sake, chicken broth powder, sesame oil, salt, and pepper as well. Once that's done, he mixes everything nicely, then adds in the chopped chives and cabbage. Then, on a flat circle-shaped dough, he places a tiny amount of this meat-vegetable paste before wrapping it beautifully. Sui takes part in making these wrappers as well, but initially, she fails to wrap them. Mukoda points out her mistake, telling her that she only failed because she used too much filling in one wrapper. Sui understands, and shortly after, becomes as much of an expert as Mukoda. After making all possible wrappers, Mukoda pan-fries them until they have a brownish color, then he adds some flour water before covering the pan with a lid. Once the flour water vaporizes, he drizzles sesame oil around the pan, then serves the completed gyoza on a plate. Both Fel and Sui's mouths water seeing this delicacy, so they dig in and, as usual, express how much they love the dish. They request another serving from Mukoda, and he happily obliges their request. After going through the same process again, he makes another batch for them, and also saves some for his own lunch. As he's about to eat, however, an infant dragon jumps onto his face out of nowhere. Fel recognizes this tiny beast as an extremely rare pixie dragon, meaning it's not a child, rather, its size is inherently tiny. The reason why the pixie dragon got attracted here is clearly due to the smell of the food. Mukoda also realizes that, so he gives the dragon a gyoza. It happily gulps it down before literally begging Mukoda to give him some more. So Mukoda gives it the rest of his own lunch and, watching it eat, mentions how cute it is. Fel warns Mukoda not to fall for its cuteness because this dragon can be vicious. Not only that, pixie dragons are skilled in magic as well. Anyway, once the dragon finishes eating, it suddenly jumps onto Mukoda's face again and forcefully forms a contract with him, becoming his familiar instantly. Now that they are in a contract, Mukoda is able to understand the pixie dragon's language. He asks the dragon why he did this, to which the dragon explains that he only did so to eat more delicacies every other time. Sui openly welcomes the dragon to their team, and the dragon quickly becomes acquainted with both the slime and the Fenrir wolf, while on the other hand, their master wonders helplessly if he will ever get to have an opinion around these mythical creatures. Anyway, the dragon wants Mukoda to give him a name, and Mukoda, being the great name giver, gives him the name Dora-chan. It's quite a cringy name, but the system already registers it before Dora-chan can protest. Mukoda takes a second to check Dora's stats and is shocked to see that this beast is over 100 years old. Dora is depressed and humiliated getting such a childish name, but Fell tells him not to worry about it, mentioning how this fool once tried to give him a dog's name like Pochi and Koro. Sui gives her opinion, saying she doesn't have a single issue with the name Mukoda gave her, and she tells Dora that he will get used to his name before he knows it. In any case, Mukoda is glad that all three of his familiars are getting along nicely. He heads to Krail City alongside his three familiars and registers Dora officially as his third familiar at the Adventurers Guild. There, he learns from the guild receptionist that the guildmaster has a request for him. The guildmaster is a dwarf named Rodolfo, and he wants this mysterious cook/adventurer to do a forest exploration quest. Apparently, the monsters in the forest have gotten aggressive, and that's why it's become dangerous for people to enter the place. A lot of businesses in this town depend on collecting raw materials from this forest, and that's why Rodolfo wants Mukoda to fix whatever issue is causing this weird phenomenon. This is clearly not Mukoda's area of expertise. However, Dora claims that the monsters in that forest aren't a big deal because the place is filled with only spiders. Hearing this makes Mukoda realize that the forest Rodolfo is talking about is the same forest where Fell hunted the venomous tarantulas earlier, and that means the problem has already been dealt with by them. Mukoda shows Rodolfo the spiders he subjugated, and upon learning that these spiders' silk is collected by many clothing businesses, he apologizes to Rodolfo for unintentionally killing such valuable monsters. Rodolfo isn't mad at all. He's rather happy that this mysterious adventurer has dealt with such dangerous monsters all by himself. Rodolfo states he can just sell the shells and the webs of these tarantula corpses to obtain a heck ton of money, so it's worth it. He also mentions how, if the meat is boiled in salt water, it tastes absolutely delicious. Mukoda is skeptical, but due to his three familiars nagging, he has no other option but to cook the spider meat. He offers to sell Rodolfo the shells and webbings in exchange for processing the meat, and Rodolfo instantly agrees. While the dwarf becomes busy with the meat processing, Mukoda and his three familiars explore the town and check out the marketplace. Having been wearing one stinky shirt an entire season, Bro wants new clothes, so he goes full shopping mode and buys himself a bunch of clothes that I don't think he's ever going to wear. Then he goes back to the guild, where Rodolfo reveals that he has processed the boiled meat, and Mukoda can't believe that this spider meat looks exactly like crab meat. He reluctantly gives it a try and comments on how delicious and umami the meat is. This gets him excited to cook a proper meal, and soon after, he prepares crab salad, crab fried rice, crab fried spring rolls, and crab omelet. The only reason he made so many dishes is to celebrate Dora's welcoming. In any case, they all dig in when Mukoda suddenly gets cravings to have some grilled crab. Although initially, the purple spider legs look nothing like crab, once they're boiled, the rich red color comes out, and that's when the meat finally looks palatable to Mukoda. He grills the meat in its own juices and is about to have a bite, but Fell intervenes, scolding him for trying to eat this new dish all by himself. Dora and Sui protest as well, so Mukoda has no other choice but to helplessly hand the grilled crab over to his three gluttonous familiars. While eating, Dora states how glad he is to have made the decision to chase after Mukoda. Mukoda doesn't understand, so Dora explains that back when Mukoda was in Carolina City, Dora saw him cooking a delicious dish and followed after him, wanting to keep an eye on this interesting human. He reached the nearby forest before Mukoda and unintentionally made all of the forest monsters angry. Hearing this, Fell realizes that the monsters were acting aggressively only because they were frightened by this rare invading pixie dragon. And what's worse is the fact that Fell eliminated all of the poor spiders that were desperately trying to live. Mukoda Mukoda feels sad for them but ironically states that all they can do is eat their meat with respect, lol. Later at night, the F-ranked adventurer takes a bath in his bathtub with Sui, while the other two familiars go to sleep with their tummies filled. After the shower, Mukoda goes to bed and wonders what he should do tomorrow. While planning random stuff, he goes to sleep trying to remember if he forgot to do something today. What he doesn't remember is the fact that he needed to offer food to the 4 goddesses today. However, the 4 goddesses don't forcefully wake him up and let him drift away in his dreams in peace. The next morning, Mukoda heads to the guild and gives Rodolfo the outer shells of the spider legs along with a bunch of spider meat as well. Rodolfo appreciates the gift and thanks Mukoda. Mukoda uses this opportunity and brings out the earth dragon corpse from his storage, asking the dwarf if he knows someone who can process this corpse. Rodolfo is shocked beyond repair because apparently selling this corpse would be enough for someone to buy an entire kingdom. In any case, Rodolfo does know someone, and that is the guild master Eliland of Dungeon City Dolan. So, Mukoda sets off to visit Dungeon City Dolan immediately with his 3 companions by his side. Fast forward, they are now at the outskirts of the dungeon city of Dolan. Fel hopes there's something worth conquering in the city and looks forward to facing enemies that will give him excitement. Sui also comes out of her bag, expressing her desire to participate in battles in the dungeon. However, their risless, cowardly master doesn't want to enter the dungeon at all. He's more into cooking and stuff. Dora-chan also agrees that they should focus on other things, like visiting the guild master, Elland, to get the earth dragon processed. Hearing this diverts Fel's attention, and now he too wants to eat a dish made with earth dragon meat. Why does that sound sus? Anyway, the legendary wolf beast rushes to the city with Mukoda on his back, and shortly after, they arrive at the massive front gate of the dungeon city. There's a big line at the entrance, but being the main character, Mukoda doesn't want to get in line. Fel has a better idea, to simply leap over the walls to skip the entry process, but Mukoda turns it down because he's certain they'll all get imprisoned for life if they try to pull something stupid like that. Since it can't be helped, they get in line and wait for their turn to get permission to enter the city. However, everyone in the line becomes frightened to their core once they see the godlike beast standing behind them. The commotion causes the guards to come over, and when they see the Fenrir by Mukoda's side, they realize the guy might be a big shot. So they ask him what his business is in the city today. Mukoda becomes flustered being put on the spot like that and explains that he came to meet with the guildmaster. To assure them he's not up to something suspicious, he shows them his adventurer's guild card. A blonde-haired elven gentleman arrives before the guards can decide what to do and claims that Mukoda is his guest. This elven man is Eliland, the guildmaster of Dolan City, and he has already heard a lot about Mukoda from Rodolfo. Eliland is just about to greet Mukoda when his eyes lock on the pixie dragon perched on Mukoda's shoulders. This causes him to become so shocked that he can't speak for some reason. Before explaining why he's so surprised, Eliland first brings Mukoda and his 3 familiars to his office. There, he gives Dora special treatment, asking him to sit on a special perch made of wood imbued with pure mana. However, Dora, like a total commoner, sits on the ground, shocking the guildmaster, who thought pixie dragons only sat on those kinds of perches. He writes this valuable data down in his journal and hopes that if he ever encounters another pixie dragon, he'll be able to befriend it using this information. Anyway, the guildmaster serves Mukoda a cup of tea and once again gives Dora-chan special treatment by preparing mana-infused flower nectar for him. He, like a total maniac, waits impatiently to see what Dora will do. Will he drink the nectar or ask for regular tea instead? Dora, understanding that he's being used for research, feels uncomfortable. He turns his face away to show his displeasure, and the guildmaster literally records that as well in his journal. What surprises the guildmaster is that there are documents in the royal library stating that Pixie Dragon's main diet consists of mana and flower nectar. He wonders if those documents are false, completely forgetting that he should treat the real Pixie Dragon in front of him better. His eyes glow as he remembers that Mukoda came to process the Earth Dragon. He's eager to see the beast and is about to take the group to the warehouse. But just as he steps out of the room, a bald man appears familiars, informing him that he has a meeting with the Merchants Guild in the upcoming afternoon. Elrond would, of course, like to cancel this meeting since he needs to tend to his guests, but the man refuses to take no for an answer. Luckily, they still have some time, so they head to the warehouse, where Mukoda casually brings out the Earth Dragon from his item box. Seeing the dinosaur-like beast sends a chill down Elrond's spine for a second. He has this weird expression on his face that I can't even describe. LOL. Anyway, after properly recording the dragon's physical data, he once again asks Mukoda about the pixie dragon's diet. Mukoda explains that Dora eats all kinds of things while traveling with him, but still asks Dora to confirm if his species has a specific diet. Seeing them talk confuses Elrond, as he's unaware of the concept that familiars can speak with their masters through telepathy. He desperately wants to hear the details, but the bald man beside him stops him from acting like an immature idiot and apologizes on his behalf to Mukoda. They move on, and before long, the overly excited and somewhat mannerless guildmaster gets to work. The sad thing is, they'll need another day to get their hands on the processed meat, so Mukoda and his group wonder what they should do in the meantime. To pass the time, Mukoda comes up with a simple and effective idea: cook some delicious food. He quickly orders the ingredients from the online grocery store and starts cooking by heating up a special pot called the Genghis Khan. I'm hoping the pot doesn't impregnate the items you cook on it. Anyway, Mukoda fills the edges of the Genghis Khan with vegetables before adding the meat in the center. He then adds the sauce, and after 10 minutes of cooking, the dish, otherworldly lamb and mutton Genghis Khan, is ready. Fel doesn't like vegetables and only wants to eat the meat initially, but after Mukoda insists, he reluctantly takes a bite and immediately falls in love. Both Dora and Sui also gulp down their portions and request Mukoda to cook them another serving since they can't seem to get enough of it. After an intense hour of continuous cooking, Mukoda brings out a box of crackers for dessert, and once again, all three familiars comment that their mouths feel like they're about to melt from the sweetness. Mukoda is glad that they all liked it, but he low-key didn't want to share the crackers with his familiars. He indeed had a long night as his familiars refused to sleep. They all remained awake like kids drunk on coffee, and this just frustrated him. Regardless, he finds his way to the guild the following day, wondering if Elrond has finished processing the Earth Dragon so they can eat. He meets Ugor in the dungeon and excitedly asks if Elrond is done with the processing. Before Ugor could respond, Elrond himself comes outside to give feedback. Elrond looks excited, and they wonder if it is because he is done with the processing. However, he reveals that he spent his entire day and night trying to measure, analyze, and size up the Earth Dragon, and despite how stressful it was indeed the most rewarding act he has done in his life. While he is so excited and Mukoda appreciates him for his kind gesture, he also knows it means Elrond hasn't bought the Earth Dragon. Elrond affirms that he is right and takes them inside so they can process it together. He admits that the body of the dragon is quite strong, and it is impossible for just anyone to process it. However, he has brought out the strongest knife they have in their guild, and with his presumption, he will be able to cut the dragon with his mithril knife. Unfortunately, as he hits the knife on the dragon, the knife breaks into two. He is so disappointed that his act didn't lead to anything profitable, but that isn't even the issue right now. The issue at the moment is the fact that there is no other knife in the guild that can break through the dungeon since their strongest knife had broken. Faye connects the dots and assumes it will be impossible for them to feast on the dragon, and Faye is right. Confirming that their trip is a waste, Faye faints and begs that he should at least find something to leave. Mukoda asks Ugor what they can do at that point, and Ugor tells him there is nothing they can do. He suggests that the only solution is that they enter into the dungeon and get mithril ore so they can forge another strong knife. Faye, Sui, and Dora are so glad about that idea. At least it will mean they can eat. They excitedly tell Mukoda that they can go to the dungeon alone, but he knows that will be dangerous. He calms them down, saying that Elrond is still down, so they should wait until Elrond is better before before they go. He takes them outside despite knowing how bitter they are about the situation and encourages them that if they enter the dungeon and misbehave, they will be a target. This will affect their travels together, and if they don't travel, they can't get the good meals that they eat. The familiars consider their situation and decide to stay with their master. To take their minds away from the situation, Mukoda offers to make a meal for them. He starts preparing an easy meal and gathers his ingredients. After his processing, he makes orc pork kimchi with rice for them. He serves it to them, and they are excited. He takes a breath in the midst of that distraction, so he can think of what next to do. Meanwhile, the gods are angry because he isn't sending royalties to them. The clique that knows about his arrival in that world tries to keep it a secret, so the others won't know. But their ranting quickly calls the attention of two other gods who ask them if they were blackmailing a human for royalty. They defend themselves, claiming it is just in appreciation of their works. They refuse to admit that they are doing anything wrong, and as though Mukoda knows that something is wrong, he kneels in front of the gods and speaks to them. He apologizes for not sending their royalties and asks that they keep the fight for him. The two new gods who have found out about his existence, Vahagn, the god of war, and Hephaestus, the god of blacksmithing, speak to him. They introduce themselves and say how much they have heard about him. Thinking about blacksmithing, Mukoda recalls that he needs to make a better knife to cut the dragon. He asks Hephaestus, but before he completes his statement, Hephaestus reveals he knows his request and says that he will give him his blessing so he can create a knife that will be far better than that. But he will also need something in return. They have all heard that Mukoda can bring things from the other world, so they want booze for their satisfaction. He accepts to do that, and Hephaestus looks for which, out of his familiars, the blessing will be great for. He sees that the blessing will be great for Sui, so he blesses Sui. Vahagn insists that he also wants to bless him, but Mukoda claims he doesn't want strength for war. However, Vahagn claims it is good for Faye and Dora, since they may have to visit the dungeon, so he blesses them. In response, Mukoda sends everything they want from the other world to them, and they warn him that he shouldn't delay in sending their royalties again while they celebrate in heaven. Later, Mukoda checks Sui's stat and sees she now has the blacksmithing skills. However, he assumes they don't have mithril, so they might have to visit the dungeon. Faye reminds him that they killed a mithril lizard on their way, and they have a mithril ore. He recalls that Faye is right, so he brings out the ore. He gives the ore to Sui, who uses her new skills to create a knife far stronger than the one that had broken. He wonders why Faye insisted on going to the dungeon when he knew they had ore, and announces that they won't be visiting the dungeon. But Faye protests because he wants to go. Well, he refuses to allow them. Seeing that all is clear now, and they can get their meat, he wonders what skills Faye and Dora had. He checks and sees that they have battle reinforcement, and their strength has increased by 50%. He doesn't like the idea, seeing that they are already strong. The animals look at him in horror, showing their new skills, while he is terrified of what they can do. Mukoda goes back inside the guild to give the news to Elrond, but upon entering there, he sees that this crazy elf has completely lost it. According to Elrond's assistant, Elrond's been desperately looking for a blade sharper than mithril, but has failed so badly that the shock has taken him out completely. The good news is that Mukoda now has another mithril knife, but the god of blacksmithing has promised it will be of better quality. Elrond gets up to test if it's any good, and as expected, the knife cuts through the skin of the earth dragon like butter. Elrond can't get over the sharpness of the knife, and excitedly demands Mukoda to explain how he got his hands on such a godly item. Mukoda, of course, cannot tell this guy that he's literally been chilling with gods and cooking stuff for them, so he hesitates to give an answer to Elrond. After not getting any answers from Mukoda, Elrond still excitedly gets back to work and begins processing the earth dragon. Even with this godly knife, he needs around 3 days to completely dissect it, so Mukoda wonders what he's gonna do in the meantime. He realizes that he'd need a much stronger and more powerful stove to cook the earth dragon's meat, and decides to check the online grocery store later. Fel can't believe he needs to wait. Again, he decides to pass time by exploring the dungeon and is almost almost about to rush off, but Mukoda stops him, reminding him that they cannot afford to stand out. But Fel doesn't care. Dora-chan also takes Fel's side and excitedly states that he wants to see how much of a boost he's gotten from the God of War's blessing. Mukoda still isn't convinced, but as cute Sui also says that she wants to pew-pew in the dungeon, he has no other option but to agree. Before heading straight for the dungeon, they gather some information about the dungeon from the receptionist. According to her, it usually takes adventurers anywhere around 3 days to even a month to properly explore a dungeon, depending on how many floors they are clearing. The dungeon has a total of 30 floors, so she advises Mukoda to bring in loads of food items with him so he doesn't accidentally starve himself to death in there. She also notices that Mukoda isn't wearing any gear, so she advises him to get proper equipment first, as there are many dangerous monsters living inside it. Her advice and warnings make Mukoda realize how unprepared he is, so he decides to cancel his dungeon exploration plan for now. All 3 of his familiars are displeased by their master's dumb decision, but their master believes that he is in the right. He tells them that he doesn't have enough food in his inventory, so he has to gather proper food items first before going in there. The familiars are pretty vulnerable when it comes to food, so they finally give in and tag along with Mukoda to the shopping district. Mukoda stops in front of a street vendor and notices that there are many vegetables he recognizes, like carrots, onions, and cabbages. They are pretty cheap as well, so he buys some vegetables, but when he tries to buy some monster meat as well, he gets hit with the reality check that monster meat is super expensive. After an entire season of living in this Isekai world, this dumb guy finally realizes that he's been feasting on luxury items that 99% of people in this world can't afford. In any case, he decides to make his familiars hunt for monster meat and buys a big magic stove next to cook the earth dragon meat. He hesitates at first after hearing the price of the stove, but after Fel gives him an annoyed look, he goes for the transaction. Later at night, the master chef is about to cook yet another new recipe, and this time he's using 3 stock pots to cook gyudon and rice. He serves the food to his familiars, and as expected, it's as delicious as it can be. The next morning, Mukoda decides to make at least 3 to 4 days worth of meals, just in case they don't get enough time to cook inside the dungeon, and first cooks braised orc general pork. Then he cooks red boar cabbage rolls, and lastly makes some shredded beef and pepper stir-fry. Using the vegetables to enhance the aroma and flavor, he completes his dish. He keeps cooking more dishes, and Fel, being bored, starts sniffing everywhere when Mukoda accidentally spills ketchup on the legendary wolf's nose. Lol. Anyway, after an entire day spent cooking, Mukoda is done, and sadly, he doesn't let his familiars have a tiny bite of any of his cooking. Cut to next early morning, Sui brings Mukoda a mithril sword he asked her to make for him. And guess what, guys? He's probably only ever going to use this beautiful piece of work to chop onions or something. It seems he doesn't even need to explore the dungeon, as Elrand's assistant comes there with the news that Elrand has completely processed the Earth Dragon's meat. He rushes to meet Elrand for the meat, and you can be sure that his familiars are more excited than he is to see what Elrand was able to do with the Earth Dragon. By the time he gets there and opens the door, he sees Elrand amazed at the dragon blood that he has taken. Elrand, without knowing that they are around, comments that the blood is crimson and the best he has ever seen. When he notices them, he immediately tells them that he has successfully finished the processing. He reveals that the last 3 days he has spent processing the dragon are his best 3 days, and he feels fulfilled. After processing, he has decided that he wants to buy some of the proceeds. He brings out the 2 jars of blood and asks to buy them. He reveals that the blood of a dragon is one of the powerful ingredients used in creating elixirs, and he is just lucky to get it. He also brings 2 jars of the liver, claiming that it is just half of the liver, and he wants them too. Finally, he brings one of the horns of the dragon and concludes his offer. With the stress Elrond had gone through in processing the dragon, Mukoda had assumed that Elrond would buy more than that, so he is disappointed. Elrond reveals that even the ones he bought are enough to crumble the guild's finances, as they are about 3,800 gold. This shocks Mukoda Mukoda, and his shock gets more intense when Elrond brings out a bag of 380 big golds for the payment of the goods. It's a good deal for Mukoda, who counts his money and keeps it. Then he proceeds to carry the other things that were produced from the dragon. They pack, and Fel gets impatient. He had seen that they had only been packing internal organs, so he protests and asks about the meat, because the only reason he was interested was the meat. Elrond informs them that there are meats, but he has kept them in an ice room for better temperature. He takes them into the room, and they can see it's cold. Because of the features in the meat, he had to keep them there. You can trust Mukoda's familiars to immediately start picking the meat and storing them. As they store, Elrond asks if he can be allowed to eat some of the meat too. The agreement Mukoda had with Elrond before the processing was that Elrond could eat with them, so it takes him nothing to accept. As he voices his approval, Elrond says they should go to his house and cook. He tries to protest that they can take their time, but Elrond and his familiars insist that they should eat immediately. When he persists, they drag him into the village and take him home. He reminds Elrond that he was meant to be at work, but what is work without food? When they arrive at Elrond's house, Mukoda brings out his oven, and Elrond acknowledges that it is the new version. Elrond also opens his storage bag and brings out a book. That is the first time Mukoda is seeing anyone with a storage bag in that world, so he expresses his shock. While trying to explain that as an elf, he has all the skills and magic required to be good. Elrond talks and talks, and when Mukoda figures he won't stop anytime soon, Mukoda leaves him and starts cooking. He starts by bringing out his meat and cleaning it, then starts chopping his vegetables, from carrots to onions, until he is done. He brings out the tray, puts the meat there, and surrounds it with the vegetables. He seasons it with oil and herbs, then puts it inside the oven to cook. To finish the meal process, they all look at the same oven as the meal cooks, and soon the scent of the meat scatters around the place. Some minutes later, the meal gets done, and Mukoda brings it out. He puts his broom in it to confirm it is well cooked, then proceeds to share it with everyone. As they enjoy their meal, he also takes a bite. With his first bite, he feels as though there is an electric coverage all over his body. The dragon meat is so great that it tastes better than all the meats he had ever eaten, from cow meat to chicken. I am sure even goat meat. He realizes the reason Fel was obsessed with the idea of eating dragon. Talking about Fel, he is excited. The first time he had tasted a dragon, he had cooked it with magic, and even with that, the dragon tasted so good, let alone the one that Mukoda made with an oven. He wishes he had killed about 3 earth dragons so they could have more meat, but Mukoda cautions him immediately. Fel, Sui, and Dora soon finish their meal and send their plates to Mukoda for extra portions. He serves them the extra. Before giving Dora his meal, he recalls that Dora is also a dragon, and eating the earth dragon could be cannibalism, but Dora corrects him that he is of a different species of dragon, so unless he eats a pixie dragon, it isn't cannibalism. He notices Elrond is quiet and looks to his side, only to see Elrond in tears. Elrond feels a rush of emotions. Not only was he able to process a dragon, but he also got an opportunity to eat it too. That, to him, is heaven on earth. Mukoda feels Elrond is overreacting, but he can never tell. They leave Elrond's place and proceed to their lodge. On their way, Fel comments that he feels so excited and strong that he suggests they should enter the dungeon the next day. The other familiars agree with him, so they leave Mukoda with no other choice but to comply. Before he can enter the dungeon, he has to give his tribute to the gods, so he starts preparing their orders from the other world, from booze to sweets and beauty products. The gods watch him as he does that, and in their excitement, one of them asks if they have given Mukoda defense skills. The god reminds the others that they have to go all out with their gifts to Mukoda, because if they don't bless him well, he could die, and this will also mean they won't get gifts from him again. They accept his proposition, and they speak with Mukoda. When the god says he will be giving Mukoda more powers, Mukoda refuses the offer, but he doesn't have a choice, so they give him regardless. The following day, he proceeds to the dungeon with his familiars. When they get to the receptionist, he sees the same receptionist he met in one of the villages in his journey, a lady named Bianca. He recognizes her and asks why she is there, so she reveals the dungeon has been busy, and whenever it gets that way, guilds can ask for help from other guilds. She looks at Fel romantically, and he confirms that she is still as in love with Fel as she has always been. Fel gets excited to enter the dungeon and drags Mukoda Vianka along while Vianka watches in beauty and awe. Vianka writes a letter to her friend, Michaela, about her new guild. She tells him that she met Fel again, and he still looks as good.